Dear friends, today, dear friends, as usual, it's very hearty and warm welcome in this new lecture. Friends, today we are going to learn two different topics in this lecture. First, regulation of cardiac activity or regulation of heart activity, and then the working of heart. It means we people have to study about the cardiac cycle. Friends, all of you are known. In our last lecture, we have discussed about the conducting tissue and conducting system of heart. We all are aware that the human heart is myogenic in nature. It means an electric impulse necessary for the rhythmic contraction and relaxation of heart is generated by specialized and modified cardiac muscles present in the wall of heart itself. मागच्या लेक्चरला आणि मागच्या टॉपिकला आपण अभ्यासलं की ह्यूमन हार्ट हे मायोजेनिक आहे. याचा अर्थ हार्टच्या रिदमिक कॉन्ट्रॅक्शन अँड रिलॅक्सेशन साठी हार्टच्या एका लयबद्ध तालबद्ध अंकुचन आणि प्रसरण होण्यासाठी जी विद्युत संवेदना आवश्यक आहे ती हार्ट वॉल मध्ये हृदयाच्या भित्तिकेमध्ये असणारे काही स्पेशलाइज्ड मॉडिफाइड मसल फायबर्स हे तयार करत असतात. नाउ दो an electric impulse necessary for the rhythmic contraction and relaxation of heart is generated by heart muscles itself, but then and then the activity of heart, cardiac activity, is regulated by two different ways. There is dual mechanism which regulates the heart activity or cardiac activity. First control is nervous control and second hormonal control. It means that the cardiac activity is regulated by nervous system and hormonal system. So first of all, let us discuss about the nervous control. The nervous system, it controls the heart activity with the help of cardiovascular system, with the help of cardiovascular center present in the medulla oblongata of brain as well as autonomous nervous system. Listen carefully. I said that the cardiac activity is regulated by nervous system with the help of cardiovascular center which is present in the medulla oblongata of brain as well as the autonomous nervous system. We people have to study about the structure of brain later on. Temporarily I want to tell you. Suppose here is the lateral view of brain. कल्पना करा या ठिकाणी ब्रेनचा हा लॅटरल व्ह्यू आहे. You might be known that it is the largest part of brain, that is cerebrum. It is known as lesser brain, छोटा मेंदू, that is cerebellum. This part is pons varoli and this is the medulla oblongata. I said that the cardiovascular center is present in the medulla oblongata and autonomous nervous system togetherly bring about the regulation of heart activity. Now question arises, what is autonomous nervous system? We shall study later on about the human nervous system. आपण नंतर ह्यूमन नर्वस सिस्टीमचा अभ्यास करणार आहे, मज्जा संस्थेचा अभ्यास करणार आहे. But temporarily I would like to tell you that the human nervous system is basically divided into three main divisions. मानवी मज्जा संस्थेचे तीन प्रमुख भाग पाडले जातात, such as CNS, Central Nervous System, which include the brain and spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system, it includes the nerves originating from brain and spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system मध्ये ब्रेन आणि स्पायनल कॉर्ड पासून उगम पावणाऱ्या वेगवेगळ्या चेता नर्व्स चा समावेश होतो. आणि थर्ड जी सिस्टीम आहे, थर्ड जो डिव्हिजन आहे, that is autonomous nervous system, autonomic nervous system. It is mainly responsible to control various involuntary body activities. इनव्हॉलंटरी बॉडी ऍक्टिव्हिटीज. याचा अर्थ ज्या वेगवेगळ्या अनैच्छिक क्रिया आहेत त्यांच्यावर नियंत्रण ठेवण्याचं काम ऑटोनॉमस नर्वस सिस्टीम करत असते. अँड द हायर सेंटर्स ऑफ दिस ऑटोनॉमस नर्वस सिस्टीम is again located in the brain. I said that the regulation of cardiac activity with the help of nervous system is brought about with the help of cardiovascular center present in the medulla oblongata as well as autonomous nervous system. Autonomous nervous system has further two divisions such as sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic and parasympathetic, these two systems are antagonistic in role. It means they work opposite to each other, about which we shall discuss in detail later on while discussing the nervous system. Now let me tell you, suppose here is the heart. I am going to show the four chambers of heart in this diagrammatic representation. As usual, the superior thin walled, smaller atria or auricles, and inferior larger thick walled ventricles. We have already studied that the pacemaker, that is SA node, sino-auricular node, which is a patch of modified and specialized cardiac muscles and responsible for the initiation, generation of an electric impulse, cardiac impulse, is located in the wall of right auricle. Here I am going to show SA node. या ठिकाणी SA node present आहे, आपल्याला माहित आहे राईट ऑरिकलच्या वॉल मध्ये. Now this SA node is innervated by two sets of nerve fibers. या SA नोडला दोन वेगवेगळ्या प्रकारचे नर्व फायबर चेतातंतू हे इनर्वेट झालेले असतात, जोडले गेलेले असतात. Such as the sympathetic nerve fiber. Consider here is the sympathetic nerve fiber and second parasympathetic nerve fiber. या ठिकाणी वेगवेगळ्या कलर्स में दाखवतोय. This is supposed to be the sympathetic nerve fiber and this is supposed to be the parasympathetic nerve fiber. Sympathetic nerve fiber is excitatory or acceleratory in function. It means this sympathetic nerve fiber, it induces the SA node to increase the rate of heart beating. It increases the rate of heart beating. याचा अर्थ हा सिंपॅथेटिक नर्व फायबर SA नोडला हार्ट रेट इन्क्रीज करण्यासाठी उद्दीपित करत असतो as it is stimulatory in nature. While the parasympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nerve fiber is inhibitory in action. It means it inhibits, it slows down the heart rate. It means this parasympathetic nerve fiber, it slows down the activity of SA node. It means it inhibits the rate of heart beating. So the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, they control the activity of SA node. Subsequently they control the activity of heart. That is, there is a regulation of heart activity. Actually the working, functioning of the sympathetic and parasympathetic system is in response to the stimuli received from stretch receptors present in the aorta, that is systemic arch, systemic aorta, carotid sinus and great veins. Let me explain you. All of you are known. Here is supposed to be the systemic aorta, the largest blood vessel originating from the left ventricle. या ठिकाणी मी लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल दाखवलंय आणि लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल पासून उगम पावणारी ही मोठी अशी ब्लड वेसल आहे, हिला आपण सिस्टेमिक एओर्टा असं म्हणतो. Also we know this systemic aorta is further divided into three regions. initial systemic aorta, then this arch curved like part is called systemic arch, and downgoing, that is descending, systemic aorta. From this systemic arch it arises three different blood vessels, already we have studied, such as the brachiocephalic artery, then left carotid artery and left subclavian artery. Now at the base of carotid artery there is a presence of small sac-like structure known as carotid sinus. लक्षात घ्या, या ठिकाणी मी ही लेफ्ट कॅरोटिड आर्टरी दाखवली आहे. लेफ्ट कॅरोटिड आर्टरीच्या परत ब्रांचेस होतात इनर आणि एक्सटर्नल कॅरोटिड, आणि लेफ्ट कॅरोटिड आर्टरीच्या बेसला छोटंसं सॅक लाइक स्ट्रक्चर प्रेझेंट असतं, त्याला म्हटलं जातं कॅरोटिड सायनस. The working of this cardiovascular center is in response to the stimuli received from the stretch receptors present in the aortic wall as well as present in the carotid sinus. The stimuli from the stretch receptors of aortic arch and carotid sinus, they decreases the heart activity. On the other hand, the stretch receptors present in the wall of these great veins, that is superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, they stimulate the cardiovascular center to increase the heart rate. It means that the cardiac activity is controlled by nervous system with the help of cardiovascular center as well as two branches of autonomous nervous system, that is sympathetic and parasympathetic. Here we have discussed about the nervous control. Let us talk about the hormonal control. Hormonal control. आता सुरुवातीला हार्मोन म्हणजे काय हे आपल्याला माहित पाहिजे. All of you might be known. Hormone is nothing but the secretion of endocrine gland. What is endocrine gland? Ductless glands. नलिका विरहित ग्रंथी, मराठी अंतस्थ ग्रंथी, ज्याचा आपल्याला अभ्यास परत पुढच्या चॅप्टर मध्ये करायचा आहे. There are so many endocrine glands present in our body: pituitary, thyroid, parathyroid, adrenal and so on. मग या वेगवेगळ्या एंडोक्राइन ग्लँड्स मार्फत तयार केलेल्या सिक्रीशनला हार्मोन असं म्हणतात. हार्मोन्सच्या मार्फत सुद्धा हार्ट ऍक्टिव्हिटी, कार्डियक ऍक्टिव्हिटी ही रेग्युलेट केली जाते. लेट मी एक्सप्लेन यू. द ॲड्रेनल मेडुला. व्हॉट इज ॲड्रेनल मेडुला? द इनर पार्ट ऑफ ॲड्रेनल ग्लँड. आता ॲड्रेनल ग्लँड म्हणजे काय? लेट मी टेल यू. In 11 you people have studied about the excretory system, you people have studied about the kidneys. You know that at the upper border of kidneys there are presence of such small and slightly conical endocrine glands known as adrenal glands. 11वीत आपण शिकलो आहोत की किडनीच्या वरच्या बाजूला त्या ठिकाणी अशा प्रकारच्या दोन एंडोक्राइन ग्लँड्स असतात, यांना ॲड्रेनल ग्लँड्स म्हणतात. हिस्टॉलॉजिकली ॲड्रेनल ग्लँडचे दोन भाग पडतात. पेरिफेरल रिजन इज नोन ॲज ॲड्रेनल कॉर्टेक्स अँड इनर झोन इज नोन ॲज ॲड्रेनल मेडुला. द ॲड्रेनल मेडुला is responsible for the secretion of hormones. Epinephrine may be called adrenaline and norepinephrine may be called as noradrenaline. These both hormones are responsible to increase the heart rate during emergency. It means again the cardiac activity is regulated by nervous system as well as by hormonal system. In addition to that, there are other factors which affect the heart activity, such as the hypoxia, that is less concentration of oxygen in blood, or acidosis, alkalosis. These conditions are also responsible to affect the heart activity. Even some of the cations, that is sodium ion, potassium ion, calcium ion, these also affect the heart activity. It means that the cardiac activity is controlled by different factors, but mainly there are two main controlling systems such as nervous controlling system and hormonal controlling system, or nervous control and hormonal control. Here we have discussed about the regulation of heart activity. Now let us talk about the working of heart, that is cardiac cycle. Let me explain you. So the next related topic is working of heart, working mechanism of heart, in which we people have to study about the cardiac cycle. First of all, let me tell you the meaning or definition of cardiac cycle. Very simple. Cardiac cycle, it includes cyclic and sequential events taking place in the heart at regular interval of 0.8 second. I am going to repeat. I said that the cardiac cycle is defined as it includes cyclic and sequential events taking place in the heart at a regular interval of 0.8 second. Or cardiac cycle may be defined as the events, heart events associated with one heartbeat. Now what is heartbeat? We have already studied. Heartbeat, it comprises one systole and one diastole. Actually, the cardiac cycle, it includes three major sequential events such as the joint diastole, auricular systole and ventricular systole. So let us talk about that major events. I said the duration of cardiac cycle in normal adult human being is 0.8 second. Let us talk about that different sequential events. I said just now that the cardiac cycle, it involves three major events such as first, joint diastole. It may be called as the general pause, joint diastole. Second, auricular systole, and third, ventricular systole. Let me draw here outline diagram showing different chambers of heart once again. Consider as usual, these are two superior thin walled comparatively smaller chambers, that is atria, and here are two inferior thick walled distributing and larger ventricles. One. Also we are aware that the right auricle, it receives deoxygenated blood via two large blood vessels, that is great veins, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, as well as coronary sinus. In the same manner, the left auricle, it receives oxygenated blood by means of two pairs of blood vessels, namely pulmonary veins. So here I have shown the opening of two pairs of pulmonary veins. From left ventricle, it arises a largest blood vessel, that is systemic aorta. Here is the systemic aorta and it is the opening of systemic aorta. While from right ventricle, it arises a blood vessel, that is pulmonary aorta. We know it carries deoxygenated blood to the lungs. Also we are aware that in between left auricle and left ventricle, there is a presence of bicuspid valve, may be called as the mitral valve. Let me show you. Here is bicuspid valve or mitral valve, and in between right auricle and right ventricle, there is a tricuspid valve. In the same manner, at the opening of these two aortae, there are presence of three semi-lunar valves. We all have studied in detail about the internal structure of heart. Now we people have to study about the actual working mechanism of heart. I said that the cardiac cycle, it includes the cyclic and sequential events taking place in the heart at regular interval of 0.8 second. 0.8 सेकंदच्या अंतराने पुन्हा पुन्हा त्याच घटना हृदयामध्ये घडून येतात. त्या एका चक्राला, एका सायकलला आपण कार्डियक सायकल असं म्हणतो, ज्याचं ड्युरेशन सर्वसाधारण 0.8 सेकंद मानलं जातं. मग त्याच्या 3 इव्हेंट्स मी या ठिकाणी लिहिले आहेत, such as joint diastole, auricular systole and ventricular systole. Let us talk about joint diastole. Joint diastole, it includes the flow of blood from superior vena cava, inferior vena cava and coronary sinus into the right auricle. याचा अर्थ या जॉइंट डायस्टोल मध्ये सुपेरियर व्हेना कॅवा, इन्फेरियर व्हेना कॅवा आणि करोनरी सायनस मार्फत अशुद्ध रक्त, डिऑक्सिजनेटेड ब्लड या चेंबर मध्ये आणून टाकलं जातं. सायमल्टेनियसली द ऑक्सिजनेटेड ब्लड, प्युअर ब्लड इज poured into the left auricle by means of 2 pairs of pulmonary veins. या ठिकाणी पल्मनरी व्हेन्सच्या मदतीने शुद्ध रक्त, ऑक्सिजनेटेड ब्लड लेफ्ट ऑरिकल मध्ये आणून टाकलं जातं. Now during this process some of the blood directly flows from auricles into their ventricles. Listen carefully. During this phase some of the blood directly flows from auricles to their respective ventricles because the auriculo-ventricular valves, that is bicuspid and tricuspid valves, are open, and as the pressure of blood in the auricles is more than the pressure of blood in ventricles. Do you understand? असं का होतं? कारण या ठिकाणी बायकस्पिड आणि ट्रायकस्पिड वाल्व्स हे ओपन असतात, तसंच ऑरिकल्स मध्ये असणारं ब्लड प्रेशर हे वेंट्रिकल्स मध्ये असणाऱ्या ब्लड प्रेशर पेक्षा जास्त असतं आणि म्हणून त्या ठिकाणी काही रक्त हे ऑरिकल्स मधून सरळ वेंट्रिकल्स मध्ये पास होतं. मीन्स दिस फ्लो ऑफ ब्लड ड्यूरिंग दिस फेज is not due to the contraction of any part of the heart, any chamber of the heart. This stage it lasts for about 0.4 second. Joint diastole साठी लागणारा कालावधी आहे 0.4 second. Now let us talk about the second phase, auricular systole. This phase include the contraction of auricles. It starts the auricular systole, contraction of auricles, and the ventricles are still in relaxed condition. Ventricles are relaxed. There is a ventricular diastole, but it starts the auricular systole. It starts the auricular contraction, and due to which, as the pressure of blood in auricles is very high, thus the blood from auricles is pumped into their respective ventricles through the opening of auriculo-ventricular valves. Through the auriculo-ventricular openings, because these valves are opened. Now whenever these auricles undergo contraction, the blood does not flow back into the great veins. That is, the blood does not flow from right auricle to the superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, or from left auricle into the pulmonary veins. Why this is so? There are 2 reasons. First, the auricular contraction, it begins from the upper side and it passes downward towards the ventricle. लक्षात घ्या, कारण ऑरिकलचं कॉन्ट्रॅक्शन वरच्या बाजूने सुरू होतं आणि ते खालच्या दिशेने कॉन्ट्रॅक्ट होत जातात आणि पर्यायाने द ब्लड इज पुश्ड डाउनवर्ड. इन द सेम मॅनर ड्यूरिंग ऑरिक्युलर कॉन्ट्रॅक्शन, त्याचप्रमाणे ऑरिकलचं अंकुचन होत असताना द स्पिंक्टर्स present at the opening of these great veins get compressed Thus, there is a opening of great veins. Also, the roots of these great veins is compressed, and thus there is no chance of backflow of blood from auricles into the great veins. Now, this stage lasts for about 0.1 second. It means we people have to remember that during joint diastole, auricles as well as ventricles are in relaxed state. It means there is auricular diastole as well as ventricular diastole. While in this second phase there is only auricular systole, but ventricles are in relaxed condition, are relaxing. That is, there is ventricular diastole. Now, as I said just that due to the auricular systole, the blood from auricles is pumped into the ventricles. The bicuspid and tricuspid valves are open. Now it starts the third phase, that is ventricular systole. As it starts the contraction of ventricles, the pressure of blood in them rises. जसं या ठिकाणी ventricleचं contraction सुरू होतं, तसं ventricles मध्ये जे blood आहे त्याच्यावरचं pressure वाढायला लागतं, and it pushes the bicuspid and tricuspid valves back, and that valves get closed suddenly. There is a sudden closure of bicuspid and tricuspid valves, and it leads to the first heart sound, that is la. This first heart sound may be known as the S1. It is quite soft and longer. Means we people have to remember that this first normal heart sound is due to the closure of auriculo-ventricular valves, because comparatively both valves are closed simultaneously. Now, due to the contraction of ventricles, the blood pressure rises, and at the peak of its contraction, the blood from ventricles is pumped into their respective aorta. It means the pure blood, oxygenated blood from left ventricle is forcefully pumped into the systemic aorta, and deoxygenated blood from right ventricle is forcefully pumped into the pulmonary aorta. This is because the blood pressure in aorta is less than the blood pressure in ventricles. This phase lasts for about 0.3 seconds. We people have to remember that the contraction of ventricle begins from the apex, that is from the lower narrow portion, and it proceeds upward, that is towards the base of aorta, and thus the blood is pumped into the respective aorta. As the blood gets pumped into the aorta, then the pressure of blood in aorta increases. It is definitely more than the pressure of blood in the ventricles, and thus the semilunar valves, that is aortic valves, are closed suddenly, and it produces second heart sound, that is da. It may be represented as S2. This da sound, second normal heart sound, is quite sharp and loud. So simultaneously we people have to remember there are two major normal heart sounds such as la and da. La sound is produced due to the sudden closure of AV valves, auriculo-ventricular valves, and da. This sound is produced due to the sudden closure of aortic valves. Whenever there is certain leakage in that valves, it may produce some abnormal sounds known as the murmurs or murmuring. These are represented as hissing. Okay. Say for example, if AV valves are faulty, if there is certain leakage in the auriculo-ventricular valves, so definitely whenever the ventricles undergo contraction, some of the blood get pushed back, flows back from ventricles back into the auricles, and it causes that abnormal heart sound hiss, that is murmur. Anyway, in this manner we have studied about the three stages. At the end of ventricular systole, again it comes the first stage, that is joint diastole. It means for again next 0.4 second, auricles as well as ventricles are in relaxed state, known as the joint diastole, and the same events are repeated cyclically, sequentially at regular interval of 0.8 second, that is nothing but the cardiac cycle. So here we have completed one more topic, that is cardiac cycle. So let us stop here today. Thank you and bye.